Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let me just deal with some of the points raised by the Minister for Manpower. I take his point with regard to the number of workers who could be affected by the changes to the workfare income supplement, that the more accurate number would be 20,000 as he suggested. Let me just come back to what the Minister of Finance said in his speech. He said, I will introduce a minimum income criteria for workfare at $500 a month to encourage part-timers and casual workers to take up regular full-time work. So that seems to be the policy intent, to move them into regular full-time work. Can I just clarify from the Minister, even for these individuals who may continue to earn less than $500 going forward, can the Minister confirm that they still will not qualify for the workfare income supplement? And Minister spoke about concessionary workfare. What does that entail? Is that a lesser amount of workfare for these individuals who cannot do full-time work, which is the policy intent as it would appear from the Minister of Finance's speech, that you want to transit these people into full-time work? Does the Minister not agree that there are individuals who just cannot do full-time work for a variety of reasons? Minister then moved on to some other subjects. And in the course of moving on to those subjects, he was drinking some water and he wet his shirt. I don't know whether that was in anticipation of some of the points he was going to make. There were some words that were used that WP wants to put a heavier load on Singaporeans, a fairer, more punitive load. I think the point of our suggestions really is a more equitable load. How do you balance things in a manner which is more equitable for society going forward, for a more fairer, more sustainable, and more inclusive society? I think that's the thrust of what the Workers' Party had put forward. And to just make the point, Minister spoke about a number of taxes, property taxes, alluding to residents in various parts of Singapore who would suffer with raised property taxes. But does the Minister not agree that there were a number of proposals put forward by the Workers' Party? And on Monday, yesterday, a Business Times article made the point in a different way, that BEPS is unlikely to hurt competitiveness and may net Singapore gains in tax revenue. So I think in the spirit of seeking a more equitable tax distribution amongst various segments of society, I think the Workers' Party is fully entitled to raise alternate forms of revenue, which we have. So I disagree with the Minister's characterization. I also cannot understand why he is baffled, because it would be in the course of this debate that the Workers' Party would propose alternate revenue sources. And you've cherry-picked some and criticized them. I think you're entitled to. But if you look at the proposals holistically, you would understand that the Workers' Party has put up alternatives for a rise in GST. Thank you.
Minister.
I think the concern from Mr. Pritam Singh on spilling the water on my shirt was actually because of the fact that it's a new flask. I didn't figure out exactly how to press the right buttons yet. I think he's put up a series of questions. Some of it we will cover it for the workfare part in the upcoming debate under the MOM COS. So I don't want to sort of give too much of a preamble. In terms of the individual who work, say, less than $500. The current construct is that, yes, in the absence of any other things, he or she would not qualify. But there are an entire plethora of help schemes available. There are also help groups available to try to understand where the bottlenecks are in terms of them being able to get a higher income or even get to that $500 mark. Suffice to say, the whole policy construct is to encourage, to nudge our local able-bodied Singaporean towards gainful employment and also a higher sense of achievement. Now, as far as the your points about the taxes, I don't. I mean, the whole crux of this was for you to, or for your team to consider what you're proposing consequentially could result in very, very high disproportionate burden on the top 1 to 5%, that it is not sustainable and it is punitive, and eventually for us to sustain it, consequentially, this would end up percolating or pervading down to the upper middle income and eventually affecting the middle income as well. Now, I think that I'm pretty sure the Minister for Finance in his roundup speech will cover more aspects of it. I think for the moment, I want to assure that our measures in terms of the policies is a very measured and a very calibrated approach, designed for most people to be able to adjust and also be able to absorb some of these measures. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Deputy Speaker, just to follow up on the point on the WIS, indeed, Minister is accurately stated the policy purpose. I'm sorry, didn't accurately say, you added something more to it. You said the policy purpose, the policy construct is to nudge able-bodied Singaporeans towards gainful employment. I understand that. What I'm suggesting is that part-timers may well be able-bodied. Casual workers may also be able-bodied. But for various reasons, they cannot take up full-time work. And it is in that spirit that I would forward and advance that they should not be denied the WIS. And I hope the Minister can reconsider this, because if the number is already smaller than less than half the number that I quoted based on, I think it's figure 28 of the labour force statistic, then all the more the impact, the fiscal impact is even less. And if we can help these small number of workers, then why shouldn't we?
Madam Speaker, I'll give a bit of a preamble, and then perhaps can I request, I think SMS Zaqy has a response as well. Yeah. I think that Mr. Singh missed my point. There may be a whole myriad of reasons how able-bodied or why able-bodied Singaporeans cannot or are not prepared to commit to just 2 days of work a week. I mean, they have a whole myriad of reasons. But we have already started this progressive wage model. We've also gotten some of the other measures to help to uplift the low-wage workers. And many of these schemes will take effect over the coming months. Now, the $500 is fixed at this particular point in time. When that rising tide comes up, we will certainly see where this group of Singaporeans who are still not affected would fall into. I think that we can then review the policy. And just like we constantly, if you look at the last few years, we've been constantly reviewing, improving, and uplifting the framework. Perhaps I can invite SMS Zaqy to further add to it.
So I thank the Leader of Opposition for his clarification. On the PWCS, I just want to say quickly that one, it's not meant to discount any of our low-wage workers from receiving workfare. So when Minister spoke about concessionary workfare, what it means is that if you are receiving ComCare, or if you qualify for ComCare, then automatically you will get workfare as well, even if you are a part-time worker earning less than $500. So that's one assurance that, today, as Minister shared, the number is about 20,000. But, with the LQS coming into play, the number will certainly reduce because the hourly rates will certainly go up. And therefore, we will see less. And for those, like Ms. Jessica Stan's or Deputy Speaker's example that she raised, for someone like that, if they are truly low income, they are on ComCare, they will automatically get workfare. So I think I hope this clarifies.
Leader of the Opposition.
That clarifies. Can I just confirm then if they are not on ComCare, they won't get the WIS?
Indeed, yes, Leader of Opposition. So, as I shared, if you are on ComCare, means you are low income, and most likely, if you are earning less than $500 part-timer, you will get it. And that also extends to all our persons with disabilities too, to ensure that no one gets left behind. So this separates our truly low-income part-time workers who may be constrained for whatever reason, whether caregiving or other constraints, that they are still provided assistance, not just from ComCare. Holistically, they also get workfare. Thank you.
Associate Professor James Lim.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just wanted to clarify a few points, and I understand that by peppering Minister Tan with more questions, we might end up making him yet more thirsty. But it's important, I think, to get some of the points that we made right. I'll start off by pointing out that I wonder whether he could clarify where he thinks there is such a large philosophical difference between our particular approach of raising revenue relative to that of the government. And I say this because if you look at the four levers that we described, only one of these, what we had called the wealth tax lever, actually approaches the high income, high net worth individuals. And even within that particular scenario, we had made very modest recovery assumptions amounting to something in the order of 1.2 billion on wealth taxes alone. Now, of course, the whole is 3.5 billion. And so it is important that to understand that the rest of that whole would have been met by much more broad-based forms of taxation. Similarly, for the corporate taxation lever, when we had made that proposal about raising the rate of corporate taxation to what would be compliant with the OECD BEPS agreement, we also made very clear that the target of that would be the multinational firms and not the small and medium enterprises. We would have kept, with that particular scenario, we would have kept the corporate taxation rate on them at the effective rate of 3% or so. And so the reason why I think it's important to clarify that we are not philosophically seeking a very narrow tax base. We are in fact seeking alternative revenue levers that subscribe to the general principles of public finance, which are as much as possible to spread the revenue schemes in as broad a manner as possible, but at the same time recognizing the importance, as suggested by Minister Wong in his speech, of a certain degree of fairness and equity. And that's precisely why we have some components, in fact, 1/3 of one of our four levers where we do include wealth taxation. I hope that clarifies, and perhaps Mr. Tan can clarify it more.
Minister Tan.
Again, I thank Professor Lim as well as the Leader of the Opposition for the concern. But yeah, fine to take any number of questions and happy to engage, because it's also good to clarify the points. I think that, as I've shared with you earlier on, or in my speech, what the impression that we have taken in terms of where you have decided to load this is on the wealth tax portion, which seems to put a huge burden on a certain very small group of Singaporeans, which I question its sustainability. And hence, if you notice that in my speech, I said consequentially, this will eventually end up having to be more spread out in terms of having to be borne by more people. Now, I think in terms of the philosophical differences, therefore, my point to perhaps Professor Lim and the Workers' Party is that, do they now, having heard our explanation, decide that they support the GST and support the budget? Thank you. I think by the other point is that I think Minister Wong will address a number of your points, I think, in his round-up speech tomorrow. Thank you.
Mr. Gerald Gill.
Madam, I think I understand the policy intent of encouraging able-bodied people to work more, but has the government done studies on what they think would be the best way, or what would be the best way to achieve this policy intent? How did it arrive at the conclusion that imposing a $500 minimum income would encourage rather than discourage them from working? Because to me, it seems to fly in against the logic of the workfare income supplement, which is the whole purpose of the WIS is to supplement the income of low-wage workers so that they would be encouraged to work more. So why would you have a cutoff such that the lowest income workers are not encouraged in that way to work more? And if the government is still intent on keeping this $500 minimum, can I get assurance from the minister that the government will adopt a more flexible approach to take into account the various constraints faced by workers that prevent them from earning more than $500? For example, some may have caregiving responsibilities who just cannot spare the time to work to earn more than $500 a month or to work more than two days a week. So can this group of people be extended some flexibility so that they can also get workfare?
SMS, Zaqy.
Well, I thank the member for his question. So I responded earlier, and as I responded to Leader of Opposition, every low-wage worker who's working part-time, who's also receiving ComCare, will get workfare. So whether or not there is a bar or not, as long as you're low-income, part-time, working, getting some less than 500, you will get workfare. So to some extent, I hope that clarifies and responds to your question. Thank you.
Mr. Gerald Gill.
I'm sorry, SMS, I don't quite understand how those who earn less than 500 will get workfare still. Can you explain a bit more, please?
SMS.
So as I shared, that as part of the concession given, for as long as you are low income, you get ComCare, you will get workfare. So that differentiates our low-income workers from the casual workers who may not necessarily come from low-income households. So there is a difference, and also from some of those who are doing vacation jobs and so forth. So this puts a differentiation and puts our focus on our social compact that if you're low income and you need the money, you will not be left behind. I hope that answers. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Leader.
Madam Deputy Speaker, may I seek your consent and the general assent of members present to move a motion to take the proceedings on the business set down on the order paper today beyond the moment of interruption?
I give my consent. Does the Leader of the House have the general assent of honourable members to move? Leader?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the proceedings on the business set down on the order paper for today be proceeded with beyond the moment of interruption.
The question is that the motion moved by the Leader, as many as are of that opinion, say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Dr. Shahira Abdullah. Oh, sorry. Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just a quick one. It's not a clarification. Just to confirm with the Minister, the understanding that he had of the WP's alternate proposals are incorrect. And we will clarify in the course of Minister's wrap-up speech, depending on what Minister of Finance says. It's just important for me to put that on the record, because otherwise the media will say, may interpret your interpretations of what we are proposing to be correct. And I just want to put it on record that it's not correct. Thank you.